Welcome to the Technology Innovation Stage, Tom Richards.
Thank you. Thanks for joining me. I wanted to take a short 20 minutes and just talk about Webex and our devices, particularly in Webex, and how they fit with what we see happening in the hybrid workplace. And it's a super dynamic world that we're all living in. So before I dive into the details, I think one of the realities just to call out is we're not quite sure where it's all going to end up. Like all of the interactions I've had with customers, even in our own organization, it is a highly dynamic world that we're living in. But a couple of key things that we do know. One is that the workforce is going to demand that we support their ability to work both from home and in coming to the office. And what mix of those is really what's is dynamic. We don't know how that mix is going to play out, but we know we need to support that, number one. Number two, given that that's the case, we know that just about every single interaction amongst a team is going to require the support of some remote participants and some in-office participants. And so these are the two things that we know we have to address right now when we go into this whole hybrid workplace environment. So how do we address this? Well, I think one of the first things to think about is it's not just the fact that we need to think of people working from home and people working from the office and connecting them. That was a challenge that we had pre-COVID and pre the exodus of all of us going home. What's different now is we also need to recognize that there's dynamism. People are going to work from home some of the time and come into the office some of the time. And that's going to differ depending on what day of the week and who it is, what jobs they're doing, etc. And so we need to be able to support that dynamism. If I can do something at home effectively and I can't do it in the office, well, I'm not coming into the office to do that. So we have to be able to address those kind of challenges. We've all optimized our lives for working from home for the last 2 years. If we're going to get people back into the offices, we must make sure that they can do all of those things effectively, that they can do it at home now in the office, and that we can make it work really well for them and really seamlessly. I think the other thing is we need to make sure that we address the workspaces that we find our community of customers in. So the home office is, I think, we know that, and we know we must support that. The one thing we've learned about home working spaces is it differs massively for different people. I live in Vermont in the middle of nowhere. I have lots of space, I have a dedicated environment for my office work, and it's great. Most of the people that I work with don't have that luxury. Many of them are living in apartments in cities with no dedicated office space. So how do we support these different environments? And what it requires is we can't take a one-size-fits-all. We have to have a portfolio of solutions for these kind of different working from home, working remotely. I think similarly, when you talk about in the office we know full well how it used to be, but we're also going to have to recognize that the office is changing. And those conference rooms are starting to have to support different use cases now. And we need to be able to think about how content interaction starts to come into those meeting room spaces, for example. We need to deal with those ideation rooms, we need to deal with the traditional meeting room spaces, and we need to deal with the fact that there's an ever larger number of huddle spaces, shared spaces that are used in a much more dynamic way within the offices. How do I book them? How do I find what's available? How do I get to those spaces effectively? And so this is the challenge on the other side of the house. And then the last piece of the puzzle is I also need to be able to connect people who are working from all over the place, moving around, us at this event, right? I've had several meetings through this day already where I've needed to both connect with people here at this event, but also connect with my team back in Oslo or back in the UK or wherever. These are the things that we need to be able to support. How do we do that effectively? That's the key challenge, I think, that we need to think about when we, as Cisco team, think about what devices we need to provide. The other part of this is when we provide this breadth of devices, we know that our user community are going to move between one and another device. And so making sure that there's no stress as they arrive to the next device, what do I do? We need to remove that as much as possible. It should be obvious, it should be straightforward, it should be seamless as to how they're going to work. And so that's what we mean by this consistent experience. We need to recognize that people are going to be coming into lots of different meeting platforms, and I'll talk about that more in a minute. But we also need to know that when they walk into a room, Ideally, it should be very obvious. Here's where you press to get into your meeting, and you're not worried about how to, which meeting it is or what meeting platform it's on. That consistency is what I'm really talking about here. So that leads to our portfolio first, the hardware that we're focused on. And we have quite the breadth of hardware, ranging from products for the frontline workers, product for the knowledge workers, product for the room environment, product for those executive spaces. We need different products. We fundamentally have to address price point questions. We have to address usage and use case questions. We have to address the spaces and scenario questions. And that's what's driven our portfolio very strongly. And also, we have to address the fact that ideation and content is coming at us very, very quickly in all these spaces. And so with that, one of the key things that I encourage you to do is head to our booth just over there and check out a couple of the new devices that we've introduced over the last month or so. The first being the Room Bar. The Room Bar essentially takes up where we had the RoomKit Mini before and focuses on those huddle spaces, providing an insertion point for those huddle spaces, but making sure that we can address some of the additional use cases that are really fundamental. And those use cases are things like, I want dual screens. People are asking now, even in those smaller spaces, for dual screen support. Additional microphones external to these devices. I need to be able to deal with some of those more challenging audio environments. And then obviously the compute capabilities of the device to be able to make sure that we can deal with this future of use cases coming at us from the hybrid world. That's what this device is really all about. The other is for the personal side. We've had a webcam for some time, which has been a 4K webcam. We're also introducing a 1080p webcam. That allows us a really simple, easy insertion point. It has some of the microphone noise reduction capabilities. It has the ease of use that you just plug and play. That's what we want to introduce with this 10K camera. It sits alongside our 4K, so we'll have both of those in the portfolio. The idea being now, we have kind of entry level through to the kind of pro level across the personal spaces as well as across the room spaces. So with that said, on the hardware, what about the software side? The key challenge on the software side in the hybrid workplace is, what do I do when it comes to meetings first and foremost? I'm getting asked to join meetings on multiple different meetings platforms. How do I deal with that challenge? And so I'll demo that in a minute on this device, but that's part one of delivering an open platform space. Once I've addressed that question, what's the next thing that comes along? The next question that comes along is, well, what about my content collaboration? I want to be able to actually interact not just face-to-face and talking and maybe presenting to you, but I want to work with my team on the content that we're creating, on the products that we're building, on the information that we're actually trying to get to the bottom of and agree upon. And how do I do that when I have remote participants and local participants? And oh, by the way, how do I do that in this open platform environment where I have different meetings platforms? That's the key question. And then I say, okay, if I do those two things, what I can't do is overburden the users with complexity. Messing around with camera technology, messing around with the audio, jumping on the mute button because the dog's barking because I'm at home or the garage door is opening. These are the things we have to take away. So simplicity through intelligence is the other key underpinning to, I think, being successful in this space. And then last but not least, I've got to manage this at scale. If I'm going to put a large number of these devices into these huddle spaces, if I'm going to support people working from home, I've managed now to create a much larger footprint of devices that I've got to support. And I don't want to have to escalate my IT team to be able to address this and have them dotted all over the country, the planet, however large my company is, to be able to support that. So I need an easy remote management solution that addresses these challenges. So what I want to talk about first is meetings platforms and what we're doing on the meetings platforms. And to be clear, all the big names in the meetings platform space, we're working with them. And our goal in this is to create a platform that allows you to move from meeting to meeting to meeting seamlessly and easily, but wherever possible and however possible, that make it as native an experience as we possibly can for that meeting platform. So the first one I'll talk about very briefly is Zoom, working with Zoom. We've got our easy one button to push join. I'll show you that in a minute. We also have an easy dial mechanism where if you're just dialing in using the meeting ID, I can do that very quickly. The other is when you're in the meeting, the DTMF APIs that are there on Zoom are pretty rich, but nobody can remember the number dials that I need to do. That's the stuff where we've kind of taken away that detail. It's just buttons on the UI, and our goal is to make the buttons on the UI look and feel as like a Zoom experience on the app as possible. And so that's our goal with Zoom. We're working away on that now. More to come as we go forward. I won't demo it here. You can take a look at it over in our booth. The next thing is Google Meet. The interesting thing about Google Meet is this is a WebRTC interop. That's the only thing that Google supports. So we can also support the interaction with Google Meet. What I like about what we've done on Google Meet is it's really set the bar on the quality of what WebRTC can be. I think there's a lot of debate. How good can video quality be? How good can audio quality be? Well, Google has really, I think, shown on our device what can be done. And then the next wave of things there is, well, content sharing directly through HDMI or Apple or AirPlay or these kind of things. That's the next wave of what needs to happen. Dual screen support, etc. And then last but not least, an obvious one is Microsoft. And working with Microsoft, using what we call video interop or integration from Microsoft Teams, we can create a rich integration experience with Microsoft. And the goal being, again, to create as native an experience as we possibly can in Microsoft meetings as well. So easy join or dial in, and then I can have multi-screen support, I can have a roster list, I can essentially operate the device the way I would expect to. So that's our goal with the open platform. The last thing I didn't touch on is USB pass-through. There's an awful lot of other meetings platforms out there as well. And USB pass-through is a fundamental underpinning to allow us to be able to deal with those. We also support that across the portfolio, either directly or with our partnership with a company called Reimagining. So with that, I want to go and just show you what that looks like on the device. So everybody pray to the demo gods, because I'm actually going to do this live. The first thing to point out to you here, this is just our home screen UI. This is a Webex board. What I'm showing you here is what we can do across the portfolio for the most part. So we also have desk devices that are touchscreen. We have meeting rooms devices. They don't have touch like this, but broadly this is the experience you would get on the control as well. So what I've done here is I've got a number of different meetings set up. I've actually got another one in here. I've got a Zoom meeting, a Webex meeting, a Microsoft Teams meeting, and a Google meeting, all set up on the device. And what I want to do here is show you, the point being I can move from meeting to meeting to meeting. So if I have at 10 o'clock a Microsoft Teams meeting and at 10:30 a Zoom meeting and at 10:45 a Webex meeting, I can move between those extremely seamlessly and easily. What I'll do is I'm just going to go into the Microsoft meeting specifically. And fingers crossed we'll find Dustin at the other end. Hope Dustin is joining us now. Hey Dustin, thank you for joining us. You might have to speak to go big on my screen. There we go, he's coming up. Yep, there you go. So what Dustin's done, what we've done is we've got a couple of different screens dialed in. So we just, with one button to push, entered a Microsoft Teams meeting. And in that meeting, I can control my layouts in any way I want. I can have a grid view if I want. So you can see now we have multiple people in there. The other thing I want to show you when I'm in that meeting, so we've got multiple participants in here. What I'd like to do is be able to create some of these more equitable viewing. People in meeting rooms as opposed to people at home. And so Dustin, if you want to just show the feature that allows us to be able to, on the devices, we can actually live now during the meeting, create a much more even view of people at home versus people in the meeting room. So you can see the size of people in the view here is an equitable experience for everyone. The idea being that people in the meeting rooms and people at home now appear on our screens in a much more even-handed way. To be clear, this is in a Microsoft Teams meeting on our devices. This experience that we're delivering here is something that we deliver through our devices and the way our devices work. Okay? So we can do this in any meeting. The next thing I'd like to show is exactly what I talked about a moment ago in terms of whiteboarding and the next wave of capabilities that are going to come at us, the next wave of use cases. So what can I do with content collaboration? Well, this is us now. I just opened a Microsoft whiteboard session. So again, we're in a Microsoft meeting. I opened a Microsoft whiteboard session. I can go in here. I'll click on the red pen and just type, oh, hi, Dustin. He's moving it around. Oh, he's writing hello over here, that's why. Hello, Dustin. So what's happening is we're now interoperating two ways from this device in a Microsoft meeting on the Microsoft whiteboard. I think what's interesting is I could also do this from a different whiteboard application. These are just applications. So this is actually the Webex whiteboard application now, and I can go in here and do the same thing. Hi, Dustin, over here. So we have ways that we can integrate now different applications for content collaboration into whatever meeting platform you're in. Dustin, thank you. I'm going to move quickly through this. I have a short time, but appreciate it. Thank you, Chris, as well. Take care, guys. So that's content collaboration in any meeting, and that's giving an equitable experience for everyone. So I'm going to go through the last slides very quickly. Applications are going to be broad. Like when we start supporting content collaboration, lots of different applications. I talked about a couple of different whiteboard applications. Miro is a partnership we have. You have all sorts of Google applications as well. Allowing those web apps to be able to be used in these meeting environments on these kind of devices is going to be a key, I think, next wave of use cases. I've talked a lot about making a kind of equitable experience with the intelligence of our devices in any meeting. I think the last thing to talk about is how do I manage this experience in a clean way? And so Webex Control Hub allows me a single pane of glass where I can look at all the devices across my footprint, not just understand the status of those devices, not just manage the software, but also see what's going on in the meetings themselves. Are my devices or any users having trouble? Where are they? How can I help? And be much more proactive about how we handle it. And then the last piece of the puzzle, and this is the bit that I think is probably slightly outside of our collaboration world, but is something that's absolutely fundamental to the C-level executives, is how do I support my user community as they're trying to decide whether they should come to the office or not? What's available to them? How booked up are the spaces? What is the air quality in those spaces? Is it good for me to come in and try to find a space on the first floor or the third floor? That's the data we can provide in real time from these systems across the footprint and integrate those into some of the applications, again, that you'll see through our partners in DNA Spaces on the booth. I won't spend any time on this. I can talk to you offline about some of the customer wins, but I think there's a lot of good detail here. One of the key things we're seeing when it comes to our customers that we're talking to is more and more the customer base is asking us for this kind of open platform capability. And I would say we actually did a survey ourselves, and then subsequently I think Gartner also did a survey. I think it was 85% of the customers we talked to, and this was 1,600 customers across the globe, across different industries, and across different sizes of customers. 85% were using at least 2 meetings platforms. 55% were using at least 3, and I think around 24% were using at least 4 different meetings platforms. So this is the reality of what we need to provide. Now, when I'm at home, I can chop from one app to the next. It's not brilliant, but I can do that at home. When I'm in the office, I need an ability to be able to do that as well. And so this is key to us being able to support our user community. And giving that one button to push in our minds is crucial because it has to be simple. The meeting rooms, people are coming and going from those meeting rooms and they don't have a lot of time. Pressing a green button to join a meeting, that's what I really want to have. So with that, thank you very much. I think there may be questions coming in. I don't see any questions. If there are questions, you can use the Slido, jump in and ask me whatever you want to, and I'll be here for a little while, so please feel free to come and ask me any questions afterwards. So with that, thank you very much for listening. Hopefully this was useful. Take care.